On my first show as host of Oklahoma Gardening, we did a segment on landscape renovation using my new rental home as an example. And we told you we'd bring you back and give you an update periodically and let you know how things are going. And first of all, I'd like to say that I've spent about $50 on the renovation, and let's go into some of the details now. I'm standing here in front of our landscape bed, and when I inherited the home, you'll notice that I had a lot of Bermuda grass growing up into the landscape area. The shrubs had a lot of winter kill, so there was a lot of dead branches and just a lot of trash in the bed. We went in, we used Roundup to kill out the Bermuda grass. We worked up the soil where we planted in some of the fall mums to add a little color to the bed. And then we went in and did a little bit of pruning, and as you can see, the shrubs and things are coming along pretty nicely. Over near the entryway, we had a trellis where there was a climbing rose that had pretty much died out, and it was right in the way where people would walk in. Again, we had a problem with Bermuda grass, and we even had a mulberry tree that was growing up. So I came in and I killed out the Bermuda grass, pulled up the tree and the rose, removed the trellis, and decided to go with the ground cover, and we've just put in a little bit of sedum, which really is an evergreen. It probably won't do much spreading this winter, but next year we should be able to spread and get the whole bed to cover. On the very end here, we still have a little bit of Bermuda grass coming out, and I'll use some Roundup again next spring though when it starts growing, because an application now we just waste our money since the Bermuda grass will be going dormant. The lawn was probably the worst part of the whole landscape. In fact, there was probably more Bermuda grass in our shrub and flower beds than there was even in the entire lawn. There seemed to be a lot of compaction and foot traffic, which caused the Bermuda to be very sparse. A lot of weeds were growing in it, so we did a little bit of spot treating with some Roundup. We then put on an application of complete fertilizer according to the recommendations, and we got a good spread of the Bermuda grass. It's starting to spread, and there's just a few areas now that are left, but it's now going dormant because of the winter times, and it's starting to look a little bit ratty again, and that's primarily because of all the winter weeds that are starting to grow. Some of the major ones that I have in my lawn are dandelions, and again there's a lot of those. Some are already going to seed even. Got some clover and a little bit of aster, which grew during the late part of the summer and still here into the first part of the winter months. Now, the herbicides that you would use for controlling these broadleaf weeds are usually a mixture of 2,4-D, either with Trimec or possibly with some other herbicides that are labeled for the broadleaf weeds, but usually 2,4-D seems to be the one that's on the market most of all. You can get two formulations of 2,4-D. One is an ester formulation and one is an amine formulation. The amine formulation is actually the safest one to use because it's not quite as volatile and it doesn't affect your plants and drift as much as the ester. However, the ester seems to give you a little better control. So just read that label and make sure you're getting the proper herbicide for winter broadleaf weed control. You make sure you mix up the right amount, and of course you can even purchase some of these in a ready to use if you're going to do some spot treatment like we are. Now, one thing you want to remember is to mix up a little bit of the herbicide in your container because you're not sure how much you'll use. So go with as much as a half a gallon or less so you don't have a lot of extra to deal with. And then just spot treat the area like you normally would. Now, a few reminders and some important check points that you want to keep in mind is to always wear protective clothing. Try to play or spray the herbicide on a day that's not quite so windy. And then of course you want to keep in mind the temperature should be around 60 or 65 degrees. And then most importantly, again, as we'll re-emphasize many times, is to read that label.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.